Good day, listeners and viewers all over the world. I'm presenting a paper on African rural farmers' climate resilient solutions to climate change impacts, a case study of Oyo rural farmers southwest Nigeria on behalf of RDC Environmental Consulting. I am Ule from Nairobi. My other presenter is not here. So this paper is subdivided into 6 parts: abstract, the introduction, our analytical approach and background, the review of literature, the results and discussion, and our recommendation and conclusion. Climate change has recently become a significant threat to rural livelihoods and food security, especially in economically poor communities and developing countries like Nigeria and others. These changes are often manifested in increased climate variability, increased frequency and intensity of extreme events, and also in unpredictable nature in temperature and rainfall. Global projections reveal that the impact is more severe within the agricultural sector. For instance, at present, climate change has distorted critical agricultural climatic parameters such as rainfall, sunlight, temperature, and agricultural ecosystem, thereby leading to significant decrease in crop productivity, livestock production, and changes in biodiversity and also in hydrology. Meanwhile, the intensity of the impact of climate change is place specific. Despite the impact of climate change, the intensity in terms of impact is always based on specific locations. It is geo-based. For instance, in the Mediterranean region, study by Deuce et al. Examined the actual and future climate risks for agricultural production in the region. They found out that climate change has led to a significant reduction in suitable lands for agricultural production, and in the short term and also in the long term. However, a study in Ethiopia, a country that has been noted for great agricultural potential and also agriculture being the mainstay of the economy. However, the shifts in climatic factors had led to recurrent droughts. While for Mediterranean region, where the change has been reduction in land, the case of Ethiopia has been droughts, recurrent droughts over the years, such that even the government and individuals, farmers could not be able to cope with the impact of the drought, and has led the country to become one of the highest recipients of food aid globally, and also the highest in the continent. In the Rwanda, studies have shown that issues of droughts, heavy rainfall in some regions in Rwanda contributed significantly to the 1994 genocide in the country. Also, countries like Nigeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad Republic, Niger, and Mauritania have always had challenges with water availability, water accessibility, and this has also exacerbated armed conflicts and violence. Also, it has led to food insecurity and loss of lives and property among diverse groups in those regions. For instance, among groups such as farmers, among groups such as fishermen, and also others. So, the impact of climate change in the global south in general and in sub-Saharan Africa in particular happens to be more. It means that the global south is more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change as compared to other regions. Factors that contribute to high vulnerability of African rural farmers. One, Africa is overly dependent on natural resources, and they are very sensitive to climate shocks and variability, such that in cases of successfully extreme climate variability, there is always a corresponding insecurity situation. Two, There is low adaptive capacity among the people in Africa, and this is largely because of the ability of people to anticipate, to resist, to cope and recover from climatic shocks. Their ability to cope with climatic shocks are constrained by some factors such as climatic variables, 2, socioeconomic status of the people, and 3, and some productivity limiting factors. 3, the region has gross potential in terms of good population, which assures of cheap labor, comparatively cheap labor, and also a diversified agroecology. But this potential is largely underdeveloped, is untapped. Number 4, in this region, food availability, accessibility, and food stability are highly very sensitive to climatic shocks. And whenever these factors are destabilized, it often takes longer period for recovery, even in the face of international aid such as food aids and maybe interventions and even government-led interventions. Fourthly, this region has high rates of poverty. This region has low level of technology. It has limited adaptive resources, and also there are some other cumulative effects that also hinder economic growth and also exacerbate existing socio-economic realities within this region. And lastly, majority of farmers in this region lives in the rural areas. They depend on multiple livelihoods that are confined to climate-related factors, the practice of subsistence farming, and consequently, they will be negatively affected by climatic shocks. So these are some of the contributing factors to high vulnerability of African farmers to climate change. In our study, we developed an analytical approach based on some background. For instance, we know that agriculture in Africa is not only dependent on crop production, there is livestock production, fishery, aquaculture. However, for the purpose of these studies, our focus is on agriculture, that's on crop production alone, and our focus is on sub-Saharan Africa. 2, we also understand that there is wide concept in terms of vulnerability definitions across different disciplines. We have issues, it has been defined from the poverty discourse. There are definitions or conceptualization of vulnerability based on disasters and risk reduction. It can be looked from the angle of livelihood, it can be looked from the angle of farming, and also from the angle of climate change and adaptation. And these definitions most times are based on conceptual and theoretical frameworks that are used by different disciplines to explain the concepts of vulnerability and also to develop indicators for measuring vulnerability. However, in this study, we contextualized vulnerability to climate change vulnerability and adaptation and resilience. For instance, we adopt the ICCCAD definition of vulnerability, which sees vulnerability as the extent to which a system is susceptible to or unable to cope with adverse impacts of climate. Also, we look at adaptation, climate adaptation and resilience related to ability of the people to resist, to cope and to recover from the impacts of climate change. So our emphasis and conceptualization of vulnerability in this study relates to climate change vulnerability and adaptation, climate change vulnerability, adaptation and resilience. So we focus on climate using indicators, vulnerability assessment to identify the vulnerability determinants such that we were able to measure how climate change has impacted agriculture. Also, we look at that when we talk about rural farmers, some of the conceptualizations has to be definition in terms of the production scale, in terms of culture, agroecology. In these studies, we said that rural farmers are farmers that operate that operate on a small scale. They are smallholders farmers and they practice subsistence farming. We said that these are a group of people that have little uptake of improved and familiarized production techniques, that they use low level of technology, and that they are constrained by resource and often involves trade-offs with other livelihood options. Consequently, we said that African rural farmers should be seen or we conceptualize them as small-scale farmers, smallholders, subsistence farmers, and they are constrained by geographical factors that are related to their location. A review of the literature. We examine different literature to conceptualize African rural farmers' climate resilience solutions to climate change. We look at what others have done in other places. For instance, Young et al. Analyzed and quantified climate resilience sustainability in sub-Saharan Africa. Their study adopted a coupled coordination degree model and they used panel regression to analyze the relationship between different factors, such the different factors that can influence climate resilience and also sustainability. Some of the factors they consider are governance, they look at population, they look at precipitation, which is also rainfall. Now, their studies find out that the present developmental effort in sub-Saharan Africa lacks resilience. It has asymmetric sustainability, low level of climate resilience, and there is a narrow gap between the climate resilience sustainability among these countries in the region. Another studies by Tufel et al. Evaluated food security status of climate variability and measures used to transform resilient livelihood among land degradation susceptible farmers in Ethiopia. This study in particular uses a mixed method approach for their data collection. They use both quantitative methods, which includes a survey, and also a qualitative method, which includes a focus group discussion. Now, a result from their study shows that farmers that have life experience with changing patterns of climate change, that farmers have life experience with changing patterns of climate change with main impacts on their food production. Like the major impact of climate change is on food production. Another study by Kudu et al. Examined the impacts of climate change in coastal Bangladesh and the impact of climate smart agriculture and climate resilient agriculture. These are technological techniques in mitigating climate change impacts in coastal areas of Bangladesh. However, the study revealed that climate smart agriculture and climate resilient agricultural strategies helps to increase resilience in crop production systems and also social systems. However, these methods are constrained by implementation capacity and also institutional arrangements in this country. Clay and Zimmerel also assessed the adoption of green revolution technologies and climate smart agricultural programs among smallholders farmers. Their study shows that there are fundamental limitations that are inherent in climate smart agriculture and green revolution technologies that limits its climate resilient effort. So this study in particular suggested some approaches that can help climate smart agriculture strategies in Africa or elsewhere. That these farmers, these strategies should also try to look at rights over land use. They should look at resource, access to resources, and also they should look at its impact on livelihood. They recommend adaptive governance and participatory approach and supporting existing local capacity in the African sub-region. Now, this is our study area. This is the map of Nigeria showing southwest Nigeria, and from southwest Nigeria showing the 4 key rural areas, the 4 local governments, which are the rural local government areas in southwest Nigeria that were used as the case studies for this research. We have Atiba local government, we have Afijo, Oyo West, and Oyo East. So on methods that we use, this study also adopts a mixed design method consisting of quantitative and qualitative approach. We found out that this method aligns to the study objectives 1, 2. We also found out that several studies like TOEFL and WOCAL, Clay and Zimera adopted this same method, the mixed approach, and we found out that this method offers opportunity to objectively and also subjectively gather verifiable facts using quantifiable data collection tools, while also substantiating the data by acquiring in-depth knowledge and insight from participants within the context of the research. Also, we observed that, and also from several previous studies, we found out that mixed design method has always helped to enhance the credibility of data source gathered and also helps in unveiling hidden phenomena in data. So our quantitative data was acquired through a survey with a questionnaire, while our qualitative data was acquired through focus group discussion, participant observation, and key informant interview. The questionnaire contains several sections that gather information such as socioeconomic characteristics of respondents who are rural farmers, impact of the assessment of impacts of climate change on their productivity and crop production. We examine climate resilient solutions adopted by farmers, and we also examine their impacts, their focus on the GRA, that's the generative green revolution technologies, is climate smart agriculture that has been influenced on them, and also their impacts. The focus group discussion and the qualitative study focused on the use of gender inequalities, farmers' perception to integration and policies on food security and livelihood options. We use a multi-stage sampling method to determine the specific location that we choose for the study area. First, we purposefully choose Southwest Nigeria for our study area simply because of the agroecological factors, the climate vulnerability in the region, and the high level of rurality, and also presence of small-scale farmers in this area, which also depicts the sub-Saharan Africa. So in the second phase, we choose Oyo State out of the 6 states in the Southwest geopolitical zone. We consider factors such as geography. We consider factors such as dependence on that state on agriculture, and that a large percentage of its people also lives in rural area and traditional. So we bring it down also to the third phase, where we look for just purely rural local governments in this area. And we have about 28 rural local governments that are in Oyo State. So out of these 28, we also streamline our factors using factors like high level of rurality, the homogeneity of the residents, that is the community. They have a community, like they are people that they have a homogeneous factor, the agrarian nature of the area, types of crops grown and farming system being their main livelihood option. So based on this, we are able to come to 4 key rural areas in the state, and they are Atiba, Afuju, Oyo West, and Oyo East. And these are the 4 local government areas that was used for this study. So our quantitative data, we analyzed them using descriptive and differential statistics, while the other data we are just analyzed using content. So let's go to results and discussion. The first section of the results and discussion look at the crop management systems and many types of crop planted under climate change era. We found out that in the area study, more than half, that's 60.5% of respondents planted tuber crops, while about 37.5% people adopted mixed cropping, with few people focusing on cereals, for instance, maize. We also found out that on crop production system that they adopt to cope with climate change, we found out that 47% of these people adopt crop rotation system, about 37.5% adopt mixed cropping, while others focused on monocropping. Then we begin to from the focus group discussion, we begin to interrogate them why they focused on crop production system. And they made us to understand that crop production systems helps to enrich the soil, and it also helps to mitigate against climate change. So it's why it is dominant over there. So this table, the first table, discusses the crop management system in the study area. We look at the types of main crops grown. We found out that it is tuber crops. We look at the other types of crops that are grown apart from the main crop. We found out that they focused on mixed production system. On land ownership system, we found out that more than 50.3%, 53.5% of the people, the ownership of land is communal land system, with others taking options like leasehold, private land with 32. So more than half of the respondents say that ownership of land in that area is by community. It is owned by families over a long period of time. Those people that are there, that are alive. So in Nigeria, we have two major types of customary land rights. One, the customary rights, which is operational in rural areas, and also the statutory rights, which is operational in urban areas. Now, the impact of climate change, we're going to examine it using some key indicators. One, on the impact on their crop productivity. They said that in 2015, because we consider a period of between 2015 and 2013 and 2023 to look at the impact of climate change within this period. They said in 2015 that many of them planted their lands, because this first aspect is looking at how it affected their land preparation. They said many of them said they planted their lands around February for their tuber crops, which has changed as at 2023. And for cereals, a lot of people said they shifted from they cleared their land in February as at 2015. But this period has been shifted to around March and April in 2023. And all this because they usually want to clear their lands in the dry season before the rain. So the land is being cleared. After the clearing of the land, they begin to look at the planting period, then expecting the rain. Because like we said, in rural Africa, it depends on precipitation, which is rainfall. They rarely adopt irrigation system for farming because of the high cost in terms of cost of setting it up and also cost of maintaining it. So this table shows the first table shows the impact of climate change on the months of production. It shifted from February to, it was February in 71% said February around 2015, and it is still February even as of 2023 for tuber. For cereals, it was 50% said February in 2015, and this shifted to March, it's shifted to April by 2023. So we look at the impact on months of sowing. A lot of people say that as at 2015 rainfall is predictable, so they plant their crops around October to December of the preceding year, trying to prepare for the new year, so that by the time the rain starts, the crop can pick up. However, because of so much changes that has happened in terms of precipitation, it has affected the months in which the plant, as many people have shifted to around April or March to be sure that the rain will even start before planting. Now, for the impacts on rainfall pattern, impact of climate change on rainfall pattern, we observed that as at 2015, about 60.5% that rainfall pattern was scattered. Also, as at 2023, 97% say rainfall pattern is still scattered. So we can assume that rainfall pattern has not changed; it has remained scattered within this period that are under review. Month of seed germination. They observed that as at 2015, their seeds start germinating around February when it is being planted. But now a lot of people said seed germination has shifted to around January, as many people have to even delay their planting period because of to be assured that to know when the rain will start. And this also affects other crops, not just tuber crops. It affects cereals and also affects mixed cropping too. They found that incident of disease. Found out that in 2015, disease was less severe at 76.79 people responded to that it was less severe. However, in 2023, 81.8% respondents said that it is still severe. So you can see that incidence of disease is less severe. So impact of climate change does not have so much impact on incidence of disease within this period that we are looking at. For cereals, it's still severe. It was normal in 2015, about 50%, it was normal, but by 2023 they said it is less severe. And similarly for mixed cropping, it was 65.3 less severe in 2015, and it was 66.7% less severe in 2023. So we can assume that there have not been much changes or impacts of climate change on incidence of disease, and this also can be the same thing is observed for the impact of climate change on types and numbers of disease they experience. For instance, 80.2% said that in 2015 that it was average, and by 2023, 81.8% was average. The same for cereals, they said it was average, and while in 2023 they said it's relatively more. For mixed cropping, 40% said it was average as at 2015, while 57.3% said it was severe. But by 2023, 53.3% said it was average. So we can assume that it's average in general. The impact of climate change on types and numbers of disease is average. Now, at this section, we will now go to the assessments of rain adaptation technologies, such as, when we talk about the technology, we are talking about climate smart agriculture, climate resilient agriculture, and green revolution technology that were adopted by farmers. As said in the introduction, most of these farmers are either influenced maybe through government, state government intervention, the federal government, to implement some of these strategies. And some of these strategies are things that have been explained, that have been captured elsewhere, and it has worked efficiently outside in other places, and which has been also influenced on farmers to see if these strategies also can help to mitigate the impact of climate change in the agricultural sector. So we have a table that documents their experiences and shows whether if this has been effective or not effective. For climate smart, climate resilient, climate smart agriculture, and climate resilient agriculture, some of the things that were influenced is new varieties of crops, crops that can relatively grow better. We also conservation agriculture, organic farming, integrated pest management system, and also climate resilient agricultural systems. So let's look at whether these strategies have been significant. 59.3 said that new varieties is not significant. that is not significant. More than half of the respondents said not significant for crop production. About 61% says not significant. For conservation agriculture, about 15% says not significant. For organic farming, it was found to be very, very significant, as 73% said it was significant. For integrated pest management, it's not significant, as 62.5% said it's not significant. For climate resilient agricultural technologies that are adopted, 71% said it's not significant. So we found out that organic farming happens to be one of the most significant foreign influenced climate resilient technologies that are adopted. So we then shift our gaze to the local technologies that are adopted by the farmers. So for instance, some of the local resilient technologies that are adopted, or measures, not technologies per se, because it's not really based on technology. So they change to more of cash crops, they change their planting, the types of crops they planted. We found out that this was significant on average because 58.5% said it was significant. Another local strategies they adopt is increase in quantity of seedlings. They increase the quantity of seeds they planted. About 53% observed that this was significant. So increase in fertilizers, we observed that this was not significant, as 52.5% assumed that it was not significant. So we changed to more of cash crops. Nigeria has a lot of cash crops that, if grown and successful, can earn a lot of cash, and it might be the same level of effort that puts in planting tuber crops that will also be put to some of these cash crops. Maybe relatively little more effort, and we might get something more in terms of productivity, in terms of crop productivity. So we looked at the impact of climate change on agriculture using several indicators: months of planting, months of seed germination, and the rest. We look at the assessments by these locals, African farmers, of these foreign influenced climate resilient technologies, and also we assessed their assessment of locally adopted resilient measures. So we conclude that place vulnerability to climate change impact differs. That the reason why there are changes, significant changes in terms of impacts, is simply because the location differs. So hence there is need to shift away from centralized idea or one-size-fits-all policies, such as those advocated by the Green Revolution technologies, climate smart agriculture, and climate resilient agriculture, to a more comprehensive, robust, place-based, a more place-based policy that will factor other critical variables such as land use policy, existing local knowledge, life experience, and socioeconomic status, among others. Some of our recommendations based on findings from this study, we recommend that there should be a more comprehensive policy that will integrate place-based approach with relevant Green Revolution technologies and climate smart agricultural principles, with focus on rural farmers. Number two, is felt that there is a need for Green Revolution technologies, climate smart agriculture, and climate resilient agricultural policies and programs to account for other sustainable development goals, together with a singular focus on the economic growth. We observe that the main focus of climate smart agriculture, climate resilient agriculture, Green Revolution technologies is simply on economic growth. Perhaps the reason why some of these farmers they are not comfortable, because this just achieved just one goal, and there are other goals of SDGs that can also be achieved using this, that should be also integrated and should be achieved. So we thought that there is a need to integrate these policies to achieve other goals, together with this focus on economic growth. We felt that there is a need for governments in these places to review land use policies, especially rural land use policies, and also address women vulnerability and women ownership of lands under the communal land system. In Africa, Nigeria in particular, land rights are. Nigeria is a patriarchal society where rights and ownership of properties is male dependent, and the case is worse for rural areas that operate on communal land rights. So these land rights are inheritance, either by inheritance, transfer to children that are male. So there is need for us to review that law to also give access to women for ownership of land, so we can have farmers that are women, that they can also be able to, that will also improve their livelihood options in those areas. There's also the need for government to always adopt participatory approach in introducing or implementing climate adaptation and resilience strategies. On this note, we want to say thank you for listening. We want to say it's a privilege to be part of this conference, and we believe that these findings will help to, especially the recommendations will help to improve climate change impacts as well, and also climate resilience in rural Africa. Thank you.